It already seems as though Donald Trump is much more ambitious, at least by the way he talks this time around, than his first presidency. Um, I guess it's just up to fate to decide whether or not he will, um, you know, deliver on his so-called promises, buying Greenland, annexing Canada, or the Panama Canal, and all these sort of things that he has been flirting with. Most people, most political scientists and historians view just this simply as, an exercise of dominance, just basically threats, about large tariffs against Canada and things of that nature. And, some people also think, and I personally also think, is the idea of legacy. I think Donald Trump really wants to cement himself in American history as the guy who bought Greenland, the guy who secured the Panama Canal again, or the guy who annexed Canada as the 51st state. As time goes on and history gets simplified, the further you go back, these types of things are something you want to be cemented in history with, not January 6th, not, election denial or, negating that peaceful transition of power, according to some people, and probably according to a lot of historians. I'm not going to throw out my opinion on that because that's irrelevant. But in terms of legacy and in terms of the future, I wanted to talk about, what the next president might look like. And I think, there's a big, sharp change that you're starting to see the fire start to light in this country. And I think that was most exemplified by the killing of the United Healthcare CEO by Luigi Mangione. And I've waited a long time to talk about it because I wanted to see how people interpreted it, how the media interpreted social media and whatnot. And I think I've got my best understanding of, like, I'll be straight up my opinion. I think murder is wrong. I think there is in no way you are justified killing the healthcare CEO. Now, with that being said, now that we're on the topic of healthcare, do I think healthcare in this country is terrible? 100%. And this is not just a Republican or Democrat one-sided issue. And you saw this mostly with Ben Shapiro's podcast, which I keep up with because he's kind of your all-in-one. Like, if you just want to know what the right thinks, you just watch his podcast and he'll tell you. But he was talking about healthcare and how, United Healthcare, a lot of people interpreted Ben Shapiro's version as sympathetic to corporations and healthcare insurance providers, that they're not all that bad as they seem, and it's because of overregulation and this and that. And you had a bunch of people in the comment section saying, I'm a Republican, I agree with you on a lot of things, but I just can't stand for this. And that got me thinking. I'm like, every 50 or so years, we have a president that changes the tide a lot in American history. And I think, Ronald Reagan was, almost 50 years ago, coming up on the 2030s. Ronald Reagan is someone who switched the economic policy substantially to trickle down, which is the current leading theory in republicanism. Before him, you had FDR in the 30s, and then Andrew Jackson, even going way back, of American presidents who redefine the presidency every 50 or so years. And there's this really good book I'm in the middle of reading called The Storm Before the Calm, which basically goes under these ideas of cycles. And there's a lot of YouTube videos about it, about how when you're seeing such gridlock in Congress and such 50-50 split divides between people, you're essentially calling for a new president with a new system. And I think that new system is going to be catered towards class, especially wealth classes. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, the times of racial divide and, structural racism is something that doesn't appeal to a lot of people, for better or for worse. I think Obama essentially beat it to the ground running that with Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Both of them didn't know kind of how to market it in such a way. And I think the new kind of pitch to the American people, is not going to be like, about unification or culture homogeneity or sticking up for minority groups such as the LGBTQ or the African American community. I think the politician who's going to win in 28 or 32 is going to be someone who appeals to the lower wealth class. Trump has touched upon it, but he still has a lot of elitists who support him, which is fine. It's politics. But I think, if JD Vance or whoever wants to hammer that home, Gavin Newsom, basically say, you know what, look at these huge elitists, these big rich politicians. Look at Nancy Pelosi making upwards of 200 million or some crazy figure like that. Look at all these corporations that are screwing us over, the little guy. Forget if you're a Democrat, Republican, whether you're blue collar or white collar, we're all in debt, we're all poor, we're all living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, 70% Americans live paycheck to paycheck, I think. So I think someone who appeals to those wealth divides, those class divides, will get very far. And I think you're noticing that now more than ever. And I think the United Healthcare CEO, his death marked a huge kind of like ignition of, just how crazy things are and how people are maybe starting to wake up to the fact that say, hey, look, these people up at the top, these elitists, they benefit from having, us, the little guys, us, the guys with no say in the game, no seat at the dinner table, fighting with each other. But if we point our finger back towards them, the elitists who tell us what to think, maybe we can work together, maybe we can spot a common enemy. And I think it's only a matter of time before a politician exploits that and changes the whole system and, wins the vast majority of the electoral college. That's what I think is going to happen. But obviously that's way too far down the line. But that's just kind of my realistic scenario about what would happen in accordance to, how American history has played out thus far. So thank you for watching.